Nate, my friend, it feels great to be back. Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fourth and Frames, the fantasy football podcast for fantasyandframes.com. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. Yes, I've been gone for a few weeks. Teddy, Nate, you have been crushing it here. Loving everything you all have been doing. Congratulations. Great work. But I'm back this week because we got a very special week. It is Expo week. Expo weekend's coming up pretty shortly. And of course, we're talking about the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio. We hope to see all of you there. But we got some pretty special guests here, and we're going to do a little talk about Canton a little bit later, but we're going to talk about RazzBall and RazzBowl. And we have two great people who represent that brand very, very well. First and foremost, let's welcome back to the show. You know, he's a member of the Four-Eyed family, will always be a member of the Four-Eyed family here at Fantasy and Frames. We'll talk about Aaron Pags, Mr. at Fantasy Triage on Twitter. Dude, you're with Fantasy Pros, Betting Pros. Your feature writer over there, RazzBall blogger, your FSWA member. Man, like what superlative did I miss out here on?
Oh, you forgot your favorite son, your favorite long lost son.
Nice. Welcome back to the show. And of course, we're welcoming the man himself, Donkey Teeth, Donkey DT, my friend. It's great to finally have you on. You are the editor for RazzBall Football, founder of the RazzBowl, host of the RazzBall Fantasy Football Podcast. You, sir, are a quote-unquote legend. Love all the stuff that you do. Welcome, man.
Oh, thank you. I don't know that I've ever been called a legend before, but I appreciate the kind words. Thanks for having me on, guys. I told you when we were talking before the show, I feel bad. I was supposed to come on. It was probably like a month ago and totally blew you guys off. So I'm happy that we could finally get it worked out. And, now that RazzBowl drafts are in the books, we've got a little bit more to talk about now too, I guess.
Now, I will say, unfortunately, I say the collective we, the royal we, it's Jorge, is blaming you, I'm guessing specifically, because if you had been on that show before, one of the questions would have been, so, Donkey Teeth, what type of strategy would you take going into RazzBowl this year? And your answer would be to do what?
Well, I would have told him maybe like one running back. I think I think it would have gone just one.
Did you listen to that, Jorge?
I did. I should have because I got two.
So you don't need two. Yeah, that's too many.
Bold strategy.
Yeah, bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how that pays off. Speaking of RazzBowl, excuse me, Donkey, why don't you give the Four-Eyed fans out there just a little information about what it is, how long it's been going on, and why it is as awesome as we all think it is.
Oh, well, I'm glad you guys do think it's awesome. We started it 3 years ago, and it was kind of one of those things. That was the first year that I had applied to the Scott Fish Bowl. So that's obviously the inspiration there. And it was down to the wire, waiting for my invite for the Fish Bowl. I'm sure a lot of people listening have been through that. And, you're like, check in, that, especially that first time you get in. There's so much excitement, and everybody's talking about it on social media. It was great. And I was like, we could do something like this. And I know you guys are fantasy baseball players. RazzBall has always been a big fantasy baseball site. Everybody knows it for fantasy baseball. Everybody knows Gray. Fantasy football has always been under the radar. It's obviously a very competitive market out there for fantasy football analysis and all that. So wanted something to, get us a little more on the radar, and wanted something a little bit different than the Scott Fish Bowl too. This is less management required. It's best ball for the most part, but it's got some wrinkles, and it's got a RazzBall feel to it. It's totally different, and that's kind of what we aim for out there. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying it. I'm glad that we've connected through it, and that's how I know Nate and Aaron here. So a lot of great things have come from RazzBowl.
You could say that again. In fact, Aaron, you could probably speak on this a little bit more. If it wasn't for you and it wasn't for RazzBowl, we would have found Nate.
Yeah, Nate and I are the official first couple of RazzBowl. I mean, RazzBowl 1, Nate and I, we enjoyed success. I mean, at different levels, but Nate wasn't writing at the time for anyone, and got entered as one of the fan entries into the competition, which was really cool. And he crushed it, got himself all the way to the championship cut lines. And this was like my first full year writing for Fantasy and Frames. And I was lucky enough to get one of the analyst entry spots. And my team just took off at the right time and made a good run through the playoffs. And kept staying just barely above the line. It seemed like every week Nate and I were just barely above the line. So finally I was like, all right, well, this guy knows some fantasy football. We kind of exchanged messages as we were, struggling to figure out how the hell we were going to advance another week with only 2 quarterbacks on our rosters. And, gosh, I think I was down to 3 wide receivers. That was it. And they had to play every single week and somehow made it all the way through. But Nate and I, we kind of clicked there, and Jorge was expanding his awesome brand over at Fantasy and Frames and looking for some talent to kind of infuse into the base that he was building. And so I think I text Jorge at like midnight or something. I was like, hey man, there's this dude, Nate. And he's had a little bit of writing experience in the fantasy industry. Really cool dude. I think you should hit him up. And like 3:30 in the morning, him and Nate signed on to like a lifetime deal or something. I'm not sure.
Yes, because I do not sleep. And so as soon as Aaron hit me up that late, I was like, okay, let's make this happen. And the rest is history. Nate, you are, of course, a valued member here at Fantasy and Frames. Gentlemen, let's get into it. Let's do a little bit of this or that. Let's talk about some questions that maybe some fantasy managers out there are kind of debating, as drafts are going on now. We're getting, this is redraft season. My home league, we're just wrapping up our draft right now, but I know that may be a little bit early for some folks. Some folks like to maybe draft a little bit closer to the start of the football season so that they avoid injuries and all that, horrible stuff that happens during training camp. But, I bet you a lot of them, they're planning out. They're getting their strategies ready to go. And so let's just answer some questions right here. So, Nate, why don't you just take us through all these different questions for us today?
Sure. I mean, realistically, so I looked at the NFFC's ADP from really August on, when it's really hot and heavy season. They're a full point PPR. They don't have half points. So everything is full point PPR. And the way it's set up is, you look at the quarterback position. And the first 2 that struck me was the QB 11 and QB 12. It's Ryan Tannehill and Jalen Hurts going to basically the exact same 93.3 overall, 93.34. So at that point, if you're making a decision, chances are you have those 2 to choose from. Donkey teeth. And we're going to go around and basically, here, like I said, if one of you guys, if you all 3 big bro hugs and you all agree, I'd be eager to hear counterpoints if you have one for the other. But I know Jorge's on Ryan Tannehill. I'm not even going to ask you. You would take Tannehill at 63.31, I'm guessing, overall. He's loved him ever since. It's almost gross. But Tannehill, Jalen Hurts, you're on the clock. Give it to me, donkey teeth.
Yeah, I like Tannehill as well, and I was in on him last year. I had him ranked, I think number 10 among my quarterback rankings, which was pretty high relative. There was a lot of non-believers going into last season, but it's Hurts for me. It's Hurts all day. I'm all about Hurts this year. There's so many parallels to me between Hurts and Lamar Jackson 2 years ago. I just can't unsee it. Everybody's saying the same things everybody that's on the anti-Jalen Hurts bandwagon, if you will, is saying the same stuff they were saying about Lamar Jackson 2 years ago. This guy, I think that he can be a league winner. I think that he can be the number 1 fantasy quarterback. I love quarterbacks that have wheels like that. If you followed me, I've been all about Kyler Murray the past couple seasons. So I think that he can do some special things. Yeah, there are some weaknesses to his game, but when you've got wheels like that, we've seen it with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, that they can cover a lot of blemishes and open things up for the offense. And I think we're going to see a pretty special year this year from Jalen Hurts. So it's him for me. If
the talk from the last 2 weeks, him going to Houston, had he been traded to Houston, how far down would he have slid, or would you still pick him over Tannehill?
I'd still take him over Tannehill. I didn't really, never really bought into that. I don't know if the rumors are still going on. It just didn't make any sense to me that the Eagles would be interested in that. I can't imagine Deshaun Watson playing this year. It just didn't make any sense. I don't know where those rumors came from, but I'd still be in on Hurts. I think that he can do it anywhere.
Right. Pags. Which side? All right. So we got a Tannehill. We have a Hurts. It's on you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Hurts. 4 games he was a starter last year. He was quarterback 7 in points. He's got, like DT was saying, those rushing quarterbacks, they have such a high floor that they make them almost a quarterback 1 every single week just with the rushing. I do worry that he doesn't have a number 1 wide receiver there in Philadelphia, someone he can count on to make plays when it's time. So I would like to see someone emerge so that drives last a little longer. He gets a chance to show off those legs in and around the goal line. One thing on Tannehill, though, Jorge is probably very excited. Arthur Smith out, meaning more throws. Julio Jones in. That was awesome for Tannehill. He did have a good season last year, but kind of, I don't know that you can count on him scoring 7 rushing touchdowns again, like he did last year. And over at Fantasy Pros, they do, Mike Tagliere does a boomer bust report on each position. And Ryan Tannehill finished as a top 12 quarterback just 43% of the games last year. So he was outside QB1 more times than he was inside QB1 last year. If you take the whole season, that, he finished inside the QB1, but a lot more of outside that than inside. And with Hurts's rushing floor, I'm on Hurts.
Do you want me to compound this and say that I'm on Team Hurts, Jorge, or do you want me just to stay silent so it's only 2-1?
No, bring it on. Bring it on. It's fine. Look, I'll give you my take on Tannehill real quick. Generally I find, and let me know if this is mind-blowing analysis here that you're getting, but offensive players on good offenses are pretty good for fantasy football. And Tannehill, they got Julio Jones. Yes, I agree. Maybe the rushing floor may not be there, but it's not like he's not going to run the ball somewhat. You look at what happened last year. That offensive line got hurt with Taylor Lewan going out with the ACL. They lost Jack Conklin to free agency. He went to Cleveland, I believe. And who did they have? They had Derrick Henry. Johnny Smith had a down year. And they had Corey Davis. I mean, okay, whatever. Finally had his breakout year. The last year he's there. And AJ Brown. Now you bring in Julio Jones. Now you have 2 amazing deep threats, 2 number 1 wide receivers. I still believe with Julio Jones's upside. Now, where the downside with Tannehill, I'll say, is, one of the things that made him really an enigma was his efficiency. He didn't really have a lot of passing volume. I think you're going to see that now because he has the weapons to have that passing volume. He's going to get his offensive line back. They drafted a few more offensive linemen to protect him. When they are getting ready to set up the pass, they're going to run the ball. When they're going to set up the ball, running the ball, they're going to set up the pass. I think one of the things that people might say also about Ryan Tannehill as well, if he has all these deep receiving threats, maybe he's not going to be that great of a deep ball thrower. Maybe his completion percentage is going to go down. He was the 6th best deep ball thrower according to PFF last year. He was had the 9th best passer rating amongst quarterbacks who went 20 yards or more. You look at Jalen Hurts, he was the 10th worst, in these departments, 11th worst passer rating amongst quarterbacks. And I get it. Jalen Hurts, he had to throw the ball deep because they had to get into games, and that's what's causing all these incompletion, and the completion percentage is going down. Guess what? Nothing's changed from last year. I'm sorry, the Devonta Smith truthers, but he can't even make it through a full training camp. I understand. Look, mobile quarterbacks are the cheat code. They always will be the cheat code until that changes, if and when that ever does. Well, and I think the gap between Tannehill and Hurts is not as wide as maybe some would lead you to believe.
Oh, I don't know if it is. I mean, clearly it's not. It's right now it's 0.03 in terms of ADP. So that says the majority are split between efficiency and the rushing floor that's provided. I mean, the only thing that gets me off, well, not the right way to say it.
Yep,
the way that leads me away from Ryan Tannehill. He's pretty, but you look at Brady, 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, still finishes the QB8. Look at Matt Ryan, most passing attempts in the league last year, basically number one, highest passing offense, still finishes QB 15. So without that rushing, I think, floor, that upside, it just kind of suppresses the ceiling to me enough. Team Hurts, it doesn't matter. Maybe we'll agree on another one. Maybe the next one. We talked about rushing upside. I have to have this caveat, though. Tag, start with you. Who's taking the first snap in New Orleans is under center?
Oh, Sean Payton will run like a Wildcat play or something, and it won't be either one. Both guys will be on the sideline, something crazy like that. I don't know how we can get those odds, but let's figure that out.
Deuce McAllister.
I hope it's Taysom Hill because I stole him in round 22 of our Superflex 4i championships as my 4th quarterback. So that would be really awesome. Hill and Cam. Are they the same quarterback? No. Cam is a quarterback. Taysom Hill, not a quarterback. So let's just stop that comparison right there. If I have to pick one or the other, this one I struggle with, Nate. This was the hardest. If that or then the other. Newton's ADP is 204. I mean, that's ridiculous. He scored 12 rushing touchdowns last year. I kind of get it, right? New England's offense, they went and drafted Mac Jones. They don't really throw the ball. He only threw the ball 368 times last year, so and only 8 passing touchdowns. So that's nothing. That's like a backup quarterback in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And, you talk about Taysom Hill. Who knows? Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill. When Breeze was out, though, and Hill was the guy, he was really, really good. He was quarterback 6 in fantasy points with Breeze out. So, man, if I have to pick one, and I know that Hill is, let's just say I know Hill's a starter, and I know Newton's a starter. It's not Mac Jones. I think I like Hill a little more, just a little.
Any opposing views towards Cam from Jorge or from Donkey Teeth?
Let Donkey go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Pag said that Cam is a quarterback, and I don't know if that's true anymore. He was a quarterback.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm totally out on Cam, and I drafted him in a super flex league really late. So, I'm okay with Cam in like a best ball format. If you can get him pick 200 where he is going, sure. I think he's going to have those weeks where he scores a couple rushing touchdowns because that's his game. I do think he's going to be the starter, but this one's not really close for me. It's Taysom Hill. You probably picked my 2 favorite targets here other than Kyler Murray in Taysom Hill and Jalen Hurts. Yeah, we don't know if he is going to be the starter. I know that there's the rumors for the past like 6 weeks have been all Jameis. I don't believe it. I really don't. I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I think it's Taysom. I think it's always been Taysom. I mean, Sean Payton has never given any indication that it wouldn't be. It was him last year. He's only had good things to say about Taysom Hill. He likes the versatility that he brings. I don't get like where the beat reporters are getting this stuff. I mean, they're beat reporters, so maybe there's something to it, but I'm not buying it until I see it. We've heard these things so many times, over the past few years. The Aaron Rodgers stuff. I mean, we can go on and on with these rumors that just aren't true, and I don't know why they get planted, but they do. I love Taysom Hill. I think again, just like with Hurts, the rushing floor that he brings is huge, and he wasn't a good passer last year, but he wasn't horrible. I think he can get the job done, and I think Sean Payton. He's an intelligent enough coach to get what he needs out of a guy like Taysom Hill. He knows how to work with what he's got. So, yeah, I'm all about him. And even if he's not the starter week 1, I think I would take Taysom Hill too.
Now, Jorge, not the same question, but a little play on that. Who leads the Saints in receiving yards this year? I know. Exactly. And it might not be much. I'll give you one. You can choose. Traquan or Callaway.
I think it'll be Traquan. I think his familiarity with the offense. I think, man, that's such a tough question because if Taysom's the quarterback, all year long, if Taysom's the man, well, I was going to say Alvin Kamara, but then
there you go.
He doesn't.
Right on, Jake.
There's a couple of games that he was playing, he didn't really throw to Kamara, which I think is just an anomaly. Yeah, if Taysom's the quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kamara, to be honest with you. But if I had to go, a wide receiver, I probably would go Traquan just because of the familiarity with the offense. Yes, I know Callaway's getting all this talk right now, but I think that's just what it is.
Anybody else? Because I'm torn. I think Traquan hasn't proven anything in the opportunities, but I can't say anything with superlatives about Marquez Callaway that gives me. I guess if you're drafting one, Donkey. You have to choose one, or have you chosen one?
I mean, I'd take Callaway, but no, I don't have like a great read on it. I'd be lying if I said I did. I've liked Traquan, but he's had opportunities and hasn't really done much with them already. Troutman, I think, is going to be a factor. I don't know if a tight end could potentially be the leading receiver in New Orleans. With, again, Lamar Jackson and the rushing ability that we see with these kind of guys, he used Mark Andrews so much in that first season. We could see a lot of Adam Troutman.
And it wouldn't shock me if Dallas Goedert might be among the leaders in Philly with Jalen Hurts too. It's turned into a tight end and a rushing quarterback floor. Jorge, let's switch it up to a running back scenario. You have something behind you. Is that a helmet of someone?
Actually, I have something to the side
really
of me,
can't
but
see it.
close. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
One of the running backs we're going to be talking about is Antonio Gibson. And speaking of Antonio Gibson, shameless plug right here. If you look right here, here's a nice little Antonio Gibson autographed mini helmet. Oh my God, this is amazing! It's an Antonio Gibson mini helmet. It even has his jersey number on there, 24.
Does it
Where
say "Out
could
my
I get
toe"?
this? What's that?
Does it say "Ouch my toe"?
That's horrible. His toe is fine now, according to
sure
Ron
it is.
Rivera.
Right. Yeah.
Where can I get this awesome piece of merchandise? Autographed and certified merchandise, folks. Come out to the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio this weekend. Come by the Fantasy and Frames booth. We're doing a raffle. We got all sorts of stuff. We got Antonio Gibson. We got Michael Carter, rookie running back for the Jets. If you're a big IDP person, you know who Jordan Poyer is. You know he's a Buffalo Bill. All of Bill's Mafia out there. You can get yourself a Jordan Poyer autographed helmet. All of these are certified, legit. And how you get them? You come by the Fantasy and Frames booth. You pay $1 for a raffle ticket. We'll be announcing the winners throughout the course of the Expo and on Twitter. And, the money that is generated it's going to go to the 4-Ed Championships GoFundMe account. That's our charity tournament that we have here at Fantasy and Frames, where over potentially 19 to 20 charities could all be winning monetary donations, as well as the overall winner winning the pot of the GoFundMe account donated to their charity. Second year doing this. We love all the charitable aspects of this tournament. So come help out some charities, potentially over 20 of them. $1 a ticket, your chance at winning one of these 3 awesome autographed pieces of memorabilia.
If you're buying a ticket to see who was going to finish higher, who you would rather draft, you're looking at the RB11 in Antonio Gibson and the RB12 right now. Again, according to NFFC ADP, full point PPR, Najee is the RB12 off the board. Both has went as high as 7 in the draft. Obviously, Antonio Gibson, last year, there was a lot of haters worried about the lack of touches in college, and yet he put his rushing game on display. Najee Harris enters as one of the few bell cow backs. Which way you leaning, Jorge?
So, friend of the show, Brooke Pryor, who covers the Pittsburgh Steelers for ESPN, put out a tweet the other day when she was covering Steelers practice. And I'm paraphrasing here, that Najee Harris was dragging Melvin Ingram into the end zone off of like a 10-yard run, dragging Melvin Ingram like he was dead weight, like he was nothing into the end zone. Look, I understand why there's love for Antonio Gibson. The receiving upside, the second year in this offense. I'm still one of those people who maybe it's just taking a while for me to warm up to him. But look, he's not Christian McCaffrey. I'm sorry. I don't care if it's the same offense. I don't care if it's the same scheme. He's not Christian McCaffrey, and he's not going to be Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be who he is. And, if he gets you those receptions that J.D. McKissick was getting last year, sure, that bumps up his value in PPR leagues and half PPR leagues. Sure. Maybe in full PPR, I'd go Gibson over Najee, but for all other formats, give me Najee. I just love the volume. I just love the toughness. I love the durability here. Dragging Melvin Ingram, who's not a small guy, into the end zone. That just screams value here.
Melvin Ingram was tired. He was giving him a ride back to the locker room, is all it was. Melvin Ingram was 42 years old. He needed a little lift, and that's what he was doing. He's a teammate, good player. Pags, you're you're a Washington football team fan. Almost got me.
You almost.
Not too bad. 2 years in. I still call them the San Diego Chargers or the
Oakland
and everything
Raiders,
else. Whatever. Yeah, still. You're the fan. Are you taking your homer in you, or are you knowledge?
Jorge, you mentioned J.D. McKissick. He didn't leave. I mean, he's still in town. He's still going to catch passes. He's still going to get targets. I mean, we all know this, right? That this is coach speak season. Everyone's in the best shape of their life. Everyone's going to be involved in every aspect of their offense. Gibson's going to get the ball more, but every time he got the ball more, he came off the field more because he couldn't stay healthy with that toe. And here, this is the new NFL, right? It's like, give the guy the ball as much as we can, unless we've got a guy who does it better. And J.D. McKissick catches the ball better. So I think we can, Jorge, you and I can both agree. And then Gibson, on top of that, last year, 36% of his fantasy points were from rushing touchdowns. So that's gonna scale back this year. That was the most of any running back. 36% of his fantasy points coming from rushing TDs. So scale back just a little bit on the Gibson, and then we're looking at Najee Harris. I mean, there's a real chance of like 250 to 300 touches here. You mentioned Gibson, or we mentioned Gibson's pass catching abilities. Najee Harris is just as good in college.
Mm-hmm.
Third in the nation, 53 targets and 43 receptions coming out of school. And his quarterback is not mobile in the least. And we know that quarterbacks who can't move have to try to get the ball out of their hands and get it. Typically that means more receptions for their running backs. So if Harris is going to be on the field, and there's no reason to think he's not going to be on the field, volume equals success with running backs. I'm actually comfortable with Najee Harris as my first running back. If I do something different, like draft Travis Kelce, I said it right, Travis Kelce in the first round. That's going to be the hardest one, I think.
That's the right way to say it, right, Nate? Kelce?
That
Sure.
is.
Yeah, it is. Sounds good.
Background.
I'm on the Harris side.
It's
To be clear, I'm on the
crappy
Harris side.
too. I don't even know what's going on with that background, but it's all these hot takes for Najee Harris. Are you going to cool us off with an Antonio Gibson take, Donkey? Or are you on the same side?
Yeah, no, I'm on the Gibson side. I mean, these guys make a compelling argument here. It's not that I don't like Najee Harris. I think I have him ranked number 10 or something like that. I'm just all about Gibson. But I mean, Pags, as the Washington football team expert over there, I mean, what you're saying about Gibson's ability to withstand, 200 carries, that you might be onto something there, and you might be onto something about McKissick, taking more of the receiving work than somebody like me that's all about Gibson would like. But man, he was so good. He was so good up into that Thanksgiving game. He had really found his stride. They were treating him like a bell cow, and I think my read is that Ron Rivera is gonna go right back to that usage. The turf toe stuff. That is, I don't know. Is it something that's predictable from year to year? I don't want to say that this is something that's gonna be lingering, or he's injury prone after one season of being banged up. And to support this argument, Ron Rivera went back to him 19 times on the ground in week 17. So I think that Gibson is the guy. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him in the elite tier of running backs come next year's drafts. I've got him, I think, at number 6. I may have moved Aaron Jones just ahead of Gibson in my rankings when Rodgers officially said he's coming back. But I really like Antonio Gibson this year. I think the offense as a whole is going to be better with Fitzpatrick at the helm. And again, it's not a knock on Najee Harris. I like Najee Harris too. The other thing I'll say is that I think that Benny Snell could be a factor in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say it's going to be 50-50 or anything like that, but I think that he's going to take a bit of it as well.
Yeah, and it's evident. If I had looked at both your RazzBowl draft, I would have seen that you had the choice between Antonio Gibson and Najee, and you elected to take Antonio Gibson. And Pags, in your same draft, exact same position, team 7, second round, Antonio Gibson went, followed up 3 picks later by team 4, taking Najee Harris. So it's obviously, if those two drafts mean anything and everything, because you two fantastic minds were in it, and that's the way it went, that's the consensus, and that's what we'll go by. What I haven't found a consensus on so far is the hate and or love towards Chris Carson. It seems to be undervalued. Then by draft day, he seems to be almost on par or overvalued. I'll tell you my take. I love Chris Carson. Not really too worried about him being banged up. Duncan Teeth, if you had your choice here, I mean, Chris Carson's the RB 18 right now. Miles Sanders is RB 19. Sanders has gone before Chris Carson in some, but they both finished at the max at around, pick 60, on average around the early third round, pick 38, right around there. If you had to choose with two, as you're probably most likely as your RB2, who's still in your heart?
Miles Sanders, but again, I'm not taking strong stances here. I love Miles Sanders, but I also like Chris Carson, and I agree he's not getting the respect that he deserves. I think a big part of that is just the Seahawks offense as a whole, and the fact that it was 2 different offenses in the first half and second half last year. I think people don't know exactly what to make of it, but I mean, Carson was, a bona fide RB1 for a lot of last year until he got hurt himself. Miles Sanders, I think that there's probably a little he's a little riskier pick just because of Jalen Hurts, because of, well, Kerryon Johnson is there now.
Of course, exactly.
But I do believe in Miles Sanders. I was all about him last year. I think that he's a difference maker. He's one of those special running backs, and I'm surprised that he's been devalued to the point that he has this year. He's another guy that I took in RazzBowl.
Yeah, he's slipping. I mean, there's some drafts I've seen him slipping to the mid fourth. And I mean, if that's your two, maybe he's being undervalued. Maybe that's the person that I haven't looked at enough just because he wasn't as high on my list. And it's not because I'm scared of anything. No offense, Kerryon or Boston Scott or the other 13 running backs from the list goes on and on. Pags, are you on team Sanders, or do you think that maybe the offense in Seattle, new offensive coordinator, they say they want to run more? I don't believe that. I think a passing coordinator from the Rams coming into play means that they're going to be passing a little bit more personally. What's your take?
To be fair, I've completely flipped on this. I was Carson over Sanders straight up for most of the early. I mean, we've been drafting for a while now, right? So I've been targeting Chris Carson and kind of like you, Nate, like not kind of eyeing Miles Sanders where he's been going or keep my eye on him. Carson's never played in 16 games. Rashad Penny's back. He's got the first round tag. They drafted him in the first round. He looks healthy in camp. But like you said, DT, when Carson was on the field in the 12 games he played last year, he was RB12 in PPR. So he performed when he's on the field. We know that, right? Sanders last year, there were two running backs who had more than 150 carries, and two running backs with 150 carries who had greater than 3 yards before first contact and more than 2 yards after first contact. There was only two running backs that did that. So good offensive line and elusive. That was Jonathan Taylor and Miles Sanders. So to be in the class with a guy with a talent like that, I think we're forgetting how talented Miles Sanders is. He also had 52 targets last year in 12 games. So I'm not sure if that's a product of the Eagles, kind of quarterback carousel or whatever, and Wentz's injury and things like that. But if he can be involved in the passing game as much as that, I think he can, blow Chris Carson out of the water. I'm kind of sad that I didn't look this far into Miles Sanders as I did for this show when I was drafting my last couple drafts, for sure. I would have much more Miles Sanders today if I started drafting today.
Yeah, really, I've drafted way too many teams without Miles Sanders on any of them right now. Jorge, you've been swayed? Because I have.
I'm still on team Carson.
Vigilant.
You talk about his yards before contact, yards after contact. How many of those metrics are skewed by two big runs, one against Pittsburgh, one against Green Bay, that were 70-yard runs each or something like that, or something close to that? Look, for me, I know Chris Carson hasn't played a full 16. 2018 he played 14. 2019 he played 15. Last year he only played 12. But you look at the fantasy points per game, and Yahoo or half PPR scoring 13.7, 14.3, 14.1. So at least he's consistent in that regard. Nate, you said something that I kind of want to all the fans to listen and take away from. This new offensive coordinator, like you said, is coming from the Rams. Last time I checked, the Rams know how to utilize running backs in their offense. I think this Seattle offense is actually going to be the exact opposite of what it has been in previous seasons. I think the passing game is going to be opened up a lot more, and I think that's going to free up Chris Carson. I don't think the volume is going to be there as much for Chris Carson, but the efficiency and the touchdown scoring department is going to be there for him. Versus Miles Sanders, we talk about all these running backs who are there. I don't know if all of them are going to make the roster come cut day, but I don't know. I don't know if the Eagles' offensive line is really that good. I know Mike Bauer of the Dynasty Rewind, he'd tell me, well, Jorge, it's not that they weren't that good, is that they just weren't all healthy last year. Now they're back healthy again. But I feel like this is the same old story coming out of Philadelphia every year when it comes to their offensive lines. I don't know what that means, but I'm not a medical professional, but we'll just leave it at that. But Miles Sanders, he has the big play upside. I will not deny you he has the big play upside. It's just, for me personally, at that that ADP, I'd feel more comfortable with Chris Carson. Miles Sanders, consistency for me with him is kind of the issue. whereas I can get more consistency with Chris Carson.
That's fair. I mean, if we want to talk about consistency versus health, obviously the next listing here, if we're looking at 2, James Conner probably would be another 8-9 picks higher if he was the model of health. And I mean, because consistency is hard to have when you're not consistently on the field. But now with the news coming out in Houston, first of all, I guess I don't know if I'm breaking this to anybody. I doubt with you 3 on here. David Johnson was not listed as the RB1 in their most updated depth chart. It was Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay. Given where they're going right now, David Johnson's the RB39. James Conner's the RB40. I had been taking David Johnson a lot late, just as my deep RB4, RB3, because of that reception upside, because there's obviously negative game script written all over that team. Unless one of you guys feel that Houston's going to win more than 4 games. And if that's the case, I'll go ahead and click you out and we'll get someone else in. But then again, what's the usage going to be of James Conner? Donkey, let's start with you, man. I mean, if you have to choose one, or are you choosing one? Have you chosen one?
Yeah. I've been all about David Johnson. Actually, I've drafted both of these guys. Again, it's interesting. Everybody, I like all these players that you've listed here, other than Cam Newton so far. David Johnson. I mean, you mentioned James Conner if he was healthy. I mean, what would we be talking about with David Johnson if he had stayed healthy? I mean, this guy could be a Hall of Famer. Of course, we can't count on him to stay healthy ever. But it is curious. I don't know. I don't understand the depth chart. I mean, David Johnson was good last year when he was on the field. The whole Deshaun Watson thing throws a wrench in the calculations. But, I'm trying to recalculate what's going on here based on that depth chart. I don't want to overreact based on one thing like that, because I was in on David Johnson. I think that he's a really nice value around pick 100 where he's been going. And you can handcuff him with Philip Lindsay. I've kind of written Mark Ingram off. So that's what's really got me scratching my head. Maybe I just got a terrible read on that whole situation altogether. My thinking was David Johnson's job first, and he's going to be the first and second down running back, and he's going to have a pretty safe workload while he's healthy. James Conner, I think that my thinking was that's more of a split backfield, and it's going to be pretty much 50-50 between him and Chase Edmonds. And I'm not interested in diving in on that backfield right now.
Pags, Jorge, any varying comments, or you guys both in agreement there that none of us have any clue what the hell to do with David Johnson going forward?
I wrote down the word misconception for both of these players in my little notes here. David Johnson, this like volume, no offense, DT, but like the volume just isn't going to be there. Houston ran the fewest plays per game last year. They ran the least amount of rushes last year. So, they're not going to rush the ball more. I mean, they're not better than they were last year. They're not going to have a quarterback, they're not going to run this all of a sudden this up-tempo game with Tyrod Taylor or Davis Mills or whoever's the quarterback. They're not going to be flinging the ball around the field. And Conner, we mention health all the time with Conner, and one, he's only 26 years old, and the injury prone thing's kind of played out last year because he did play in 13 games, and 2 of those games he missed were from COVID. So, ease off a little bit, I think, on the injury thing for Conner. He gets his running back coach back that he had in his most successful years, and the guy's just like an excellent goal line back. So even if his role is only when Arizona moves the ball down the field, which they will, and gets into scoring, he's one of the most efficient goal line backs, 56% touchdown conversion rate inside the 5. So wow. He's excellent. He's good around the goal line. He's got a nose for the end zone. And so that makes him a flex play every week, because all you got to do is score a touchdown and you're my flex. So.
Yeah. Jorge, you want to take a stab at this conundrum? Or you want to move on?
No, definitely. I want to give my 2 cents here because I love this question. Somebody mentioned it earlier. I think, Aaron, it was you. Coach speak is rampant this time of year. Beat reporter reports are also rampant this time of year. You have, on one hand, the unofficial depth chart coming out, and everybody's saying that David Johnson is looking a bit slower than Philip Lindsay and Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, you know what the situation with Mark Ingram is? the new head coach used to be one of the offensive line coaches or something for Baltimore. That's the familiarity thing. I don't think this unofficial depth chart changes. And Donkey, I love your take on David Johnson. I'm looking at his look. He wasn't giving you like his stellar 2016 year in fantasy point production, but he was giving you a great flex floor with double-digit fantasy point production throughout last year, especially down the stretch, high volume. So the reception upside is there for David Johnson. Totally love that. For me, it comes down to just which offense is better. Going back to one more thing in terms of beat reporters and coach speak, people are saying that, ever since James Conner has been coming back into practice during training camp, he's looked well running the ball. One of their beat reporters this season said they wouldn't be surprised if Chase Edmonds is the third down back and Conner gets the first and second down opportunities. Whatever. Sure, that sounds great. One report sounds bad for one person, one report sounds good for the other person. So what do you make of it? For me, for this situation where these guys are going in their drafts for ADP, I want the player who's on the better offense who's going to be in scoring position. And in that regards, I go Conner. But I wouldn't write off David Johnson just yet.
No, I mean, again, as late as they're both going, like you said, Donkey, pick 100. At that point, anybody else going around there, I'm fine with just the chance that eventually the cream rises to the top. And I think that they both in those backfields have that. Pags, I'm going to start with you because I think that you might have gotten one of the better values, at least from 3 weeks ago versus now. CeeDee Lamb has been on this. I've seen him go at pick 19 now. His ADP is on the rise. Obviously, the Hard Knocks bump is about to happen here shortly. After about 2 weeks, he'll be in the first round before we know it, as will Amari Cooper, as will Michael Gallup, as will everybody else. But right now, he's the wide receiver 11, and Allen Robinson is wide receiver 12. If you had to take one as one's going to be your wide receiver 1. Who are you building your stable around?
Well, you mentioned it that I grabbed CeeDee Lamb in the RazzBowl, and I feel comfortable with him as my wide receiver 1. But let me just dispel some Allen Robinson things real quick. Like, everyone's really excited about Justin Fields taking over, and we all are sure that he's going to take over at some point as the Bears quarterback this year, right? We all agree on that. But rookie quarterbacks usually, it's very difficult for a rookie quarterback to produce a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. You just take a look back and see how many rookie quarterbacks have produced a wide receiver 1, and they just aren't there. And obviously Allen Robinson, I honestly feel like I would feel more comfortable if Andy Dalton starter all year, because then Allen Robinson's for sure getting 150 targets again for the third consecutive season. And Allen Robinson is perennially underdrafted. We always forget about him, and the guy just puts up points. So no disrespect. There's no one to challenge him for the ball in Chicago, but no disrespect to Allen Robinson. But CeeDee Lamb is a nightmare for NFL defensive coordinators. This guy lines up in the slot, and he's a mismatch. At either side of the ball, Dallas does a great job getting him, into spots to be successful. They did that last year. Him and Dak had an instant connection. They were so good. He was Dak's favorite deep target, and in the slot he had 69 catches, 877 yards, and 5 touchdowns last year out of the slot position. So no one could cover him in the slot last year. There's no reason to think that they figured something out and defenses are going to be able to stop him in year 2 in the NFL with Dak healthy all season. CeeDee Lamb to the moon, as the kids would say.
Jorge?
Wow. I think for fantasy, Justin Fields starting for the Bears is good for Justin Fields. But Andy Dalton, like you said, I think is good for Allen Robinson. But let's now, you mentioned something right quick about CeeDee playing in the slot last year. He was like their predominant slot wide receiver last year. Short intermediate, runs, get the ball out. There's been a report that Gallup is actually taking more of the inside slot role and that CeeDee's playing more outside. So whether or not this is a schematic thing with McCarthy's offense where they like to focus on, maybe not so much the deep passing routes, but more of the crisscrossing routes, I don't know. I'm not a coach. I can't really speak to that, but I just found it interesting that, more of the targets came out of the slot for Dallas last year, and CeeDee happened to occupy that spot. And I'm with you. I love Allen Robinson. He doesn't get respect. He doesn't get the respect he's deserved. You look what he's been able to do with Blake Bortles and Foles and you name it, Trubisky. He still always comes out as a top wide receiver. Yeah, I'd still go CeeDee here. I think this offense is going to be pretty potent.
All right, and Donkey, 2 questions for you. Number 1, is it going to be CD or A-Rob? And 2, with your sombrero in the background, obviously being a Bears fan, I will ask you in Spanish which one you choose. Donde está el baño? I believe is Spanish for which wide receiver do you like better?
Wow. Really?
I think so.
No say. Yeah, I'm with these guys. I'm on CeeDee Lamb. It's hard to say anything bad about Allen Robinson. I mean, like Jorge said, this guy, he had a monster season with Blake Bortles at quarterback. So, I mean, is Justin Fields going to do worse than that? Again, we don't know if it's. I hope it's going to be Justin Fields. And I don't disagree. I think, Andy Dalton probably is the better quarterback for Allen Robinson. But I think the point here is that CeeDee Lamb is special. He's a very special talent. Him and Dak, like I think Aaron said, they had a natural connection early in the season last year. I mean, he was on pace for a hell of a rookie season. I think they probably picked back up right there in CeeDee Lamb. I think this is a guy we're going to be talking about with the elites come next year's drafts. I mean, we already kind of are, but that next tier up.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, as these two, well, really CD, A-Rob, I think is always kind of, like we said, perennial kind of underrated. Just seems boring. I don't know why he's boring, but he's not boring to me. I would love to have him, but if given the choice, I am on CD there. It's around wide receiver 28, 29. Pick 68, somewhere right around that range where you're facing and you're staring OBJ and someone like Chase Claypool in the face. I don't know if there's any person who has fallen further from that pinnacle than OBJ. And I don't know if there's anybody who in one game has cemented themselves, not just one game. It's not fair to Chase Claypool, but realistically, he really had one game that kind of started that ascension. Donkey, if you have to make one of these your wide receiver 3, who are you more comfortable as your 3? I'd say old and crusty, no offense, OBJ, because he's not that old, or the potential upside of Chase Claypool.
Yeah, again, I like both these guys, but it's OBJ here for me. I think that we're going to see a big bounce back from Odell. I'm hoping that he's really motivated by these last couple seasons. We saw flashes last year before the injury. Claypool, I think his upside is evident, but I also think it's slightly capped by Ben not being the guy he used to be, and Deontay Johnson and Juju. I mean, I've always been a non-believer in Juju, but he's still going to take his share of the work. I mean, that's not going anywhere. So there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. Yeah, there's a lot of running that's going to be going on. We do know that in the Stefanski offense, and we know Landry's going to be there. But I think it's just the two of them for the most part versus you got 3 receivers in Pittsburgh. I still think Odell has that elite upside.
I do too, and I worry a little bit about Claypool. I worry about the offensive line in Pittsburgh. I don't know how much time Roethlisberger is going to have to go deep. Claypool in one-on-ones, 50-50 balls wasn't exactly stellar. And then you have this time in the pocket, which is, as we said, crumbling. And you look to a person who I saw Matt Harmon's reception perception. Juju was double-teamed one time all of last year, which means I think that gives him a lot of opportunities out of slot just to get that quick throw over the middle. Jorge, Pags, are you guys in agreement that it's OBJ, or do one of you guys have some Chase Claypool to swim in?
I actually would choose Claypool today. And this is another one that I flipped on. I feel like you have made me go back and look myself in the mirror at why I think OBJ is a better pick this year than Claypool. And, DT, you mentioned it, this Kevin Stefanski offense, it's not built for a top flight wide receiver like Beckham. He 10 targets or more a game when he was with the Giants, and he hasn't averaged more than 8 targets per game as Brown, even when he's on the field. So there's just not enough volume there for me now that I'm digging a little deeper. And Claypool, ask me 2 days ago or 3 days ago, and I would tell you that I would rather have Deontay Johnson or Juju Smith-Schuster or one of these guys in there. But the Steelers ran out their ones to start that Hall of Fame game, and Claypool was on the field for 100% of the snaps. Every single snap, except for after he made that ridiculous 45-yard catch and had to come off the field for one play to get a blow. So it seems like, Nate, you say one game, but it seems like he's the big-bodied, prototypical receiver that you can build some kind of passing game around. We know the Steelers are going to scale back their passes this year now that they have Najee Harris in the backfield. And so, the targets are going to start that tree is going to start to narrow. And I think it's going to narrow towards Claypool more than I had initially thought, just seeing him on the field so often here in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, and let me clarify real quick. It wasn't that I was saying that he had all of his production in just one game, because he had 11 targets or more in 3 different games, 10 or more in 4 different games. So, I mean, the upside is there. So let me make sure that I'm not a Chase Claypool hater here when it comes to that, because I'll get the hate mail directed towards Jorge when he says that he hates Chase Claypool, or is it that you love OBJ and you love our guest Donkey Teeth? Choose your friend, choose your adventure.
Can I answer yes to everything? Look, I'm actually on Team OBJ. Aaron, you bring up a good point. Look, the target volume is not going to be there for OBJ. Well, I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be equally as abundant or lack thereof for Claypool, just because of the receiving options in Pittsburgh being numerous here. Let's take a step back a few seasons. What was the head coach? What was his name of the Browns before it was Stefanski? I don't even remember his name anymore, to be honest with you.
Hugh Jackson.
No, after that, it was the offensive coordinator. Whoever it was not memorable. Yeah. That's the point.
Right.
And Baker Mayfield had his worst season as a pro. You bring in Kevin Stefanski. You look at what he did his last season in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins coming off of the previous season, with John DeFilippo as the offensive coordinator. He was just hucking it, chucking it all over the field, but they weren't winning games. You bring in Stefanski the following year in Minnesota. What do? They take away the passing volume from Kirk Cousins, but they make him a more efficient passer. He got you 22, touchdowns or so, but he didn't get you that many interceptions. I want to say he got you 7, which, as being a Washington fan, that is unheard of for Kirk Cousins. Okay. Now you come over, Stefanski's going to Cleveland. Baker Mayfield's coming off of his worst season. Many were saying, maybe they're giving Mayfield too many responsibilities. Maybe he's forcing things too much. So what they do, they bring in a coach who's like, you know what, we're not going to give you the volume, but we're going to make you an efficient passer. And you saw that it was evident with the running game and the rushing attack for Cleveland for the majority of the season. But at some point during that season, you started to see a little bit more Baker. And slowly but surely, you saw him being in more command of this offense. The passing volume started to go up a little bit more. And all of a sudden, this offense started to look a little bit more complete. Okay. And therefore, you have a young quarterback who has a great offensive line, who's starting to get a little bit more active in the passing game. And you have a talented wide receiver like Odell Beckham. I can't say the same for Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think the offensive line's great. I don't think he can throw the ball downfield that much. I don't know if he's going to have the time to. Nate, you alluded to that. So give me OBJ in the situation.
And they might lean on, like Jake's saying, they might just lean on Najee. Let him carry the load. Their defense is going to put them in games where they're going to have a positive game script. I think that goes without saying, that they should have that opportunity where they don't have to pass the ball 40 plus times a game to stay competitive. But that division should be tough. I don't feel envy for any of those teams that are looking to try to win that North. I was going to ask you guys one late round stab at wide receiver, and unfortunately, I kind of gave the pin of death when I was going to talk about Rashad Bateman. He went down with a groin injury. I don't know if you guys had one picked out. I can kind of go around the horn here. Patent pending for the term "around the horn," by the way, for anything in case anybody's listening.
Around the frames, we do around the frames.
Right. ESPN's not listening. I think we're good. PTI too. Go ahead, Donkey T. What about you, man? I still have a couple drafts left. Who can I gather to take this late dart throw at?
One of the guys that I grabbed second to last round in RazzBowl was Van Jefferson. I like the second-year wide receivers. I don't know that it's been talked about enough how difficult of a season it likely was last year for rookie receivers and tight ends with no preseason. We know it was a watered-down training camp. Now with Van Jefferson specifically, we got a new quarterback coming in there, and I think that kind of breaks up the barrier that may have been there previously, because we know that Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods had great chemistry with Jared Goff. And now you got Stafford coming in, and I think it's kind of a blank slate. Van Jefferson, one of the most polished route runners in last year's draft class. I think he's basically free right now. I think that he could have a really nice season with Stafford, and again, he's free.
Yeah, Pags. So, Jake mentioned Elijah Moore looking great preseason. You using any preseason buzz, or you have someone built in that you have been targeting late without some of the hype and hoopla?
Yeah, I mean, there might still be some hype hanging around, but I feel like we've all forgotten how good Henry Ruggs was, and coming into the NFL, and also John Gruden, he doesn't like to be made fun of. I mean, everyone makes fun of the guy every chance they get. Like, no matter who you are, I think everyone's made a John Gruden joke in their life, but he doesn't want Henry Ruggs to be that joke, right? He doesn't want him to be this horrible mess up of a first round pick that everyone feels like he was last year, and so, with only Darren Waller to really eat targets from Derek Carr, why not Henry Ruggs is what I say. Why can't Henry Ruggs have 140 targets in this offense? I don't know why not. So if you don't have to invest literally anything, except for like a 18th round pick in a wide receiver who could be the 1A, let's say, in the Oakland offense. That's where I'm going almost all the time when I'm looking for a late round wide receiver. Almost every time.
I took Ruggs in the 12th round in RazzBowl. So
there you go. So you really like him.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was where you had to take him. So
damn it! I got him in I'm in the 11th for Ruggs.
I guess I got him in the 13th. So there you go. So I think we're high on Ruggs.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Jorge? Did you take him over one of your two running backs?
You know what? Watch history be made this year in RazzBowl. Okay, you just watch. All right.
Exactly.
Look, I want to say it's like a homer pick for me, even though they're not my team. In fact, they're my wife's team, and her and I butt heads 2 weekends out of the year. Give me Michael Gallup again.
Not again.
I'm not quitting Michael Gallup. In PPR last year, he, all these guys. Amari Cooper was 15.6 points.
Jake's with us too.
14 points. Gallup 11.2. With the hodgepodge at quarterback last year, you were able to get 3 wide receivers over 100 targets, with the Cooper getting 130, Lamb getting 111, and Gallup still getting 105. So clearly, this offense this offensive scheme still favors all 3 wide receivers. Let's not forget, McCarthy's time in Green Bay. You had the Jordy Nelson, you had the Devonta Adams, you had the Randall Cobb, or you had the Greg Jennings, and you had the Jordy Nelson, and you had whoever else was the 3rd wide receiver. They always are able to produce history, track record, that is. And just because I'm stubborn and I can't quit Michael Gallup, and it's a contract year, and the reports of him playing out of the slot, and we were talking about earlier about, a lot of the offense was funneled through the slot last year. Dak Prescott's back. Hopefully, even though there's a report going back, he's getting another MRI on his shoulder, which that is no bueno. That's real Spanish there, Nate. Okay,
lo siento, amigo.
So give me some Michael Gallup.
Wow. And honestly, I guess with all the I don't know if there's concern about Amari Cooper's ankle, but I think Michael Thomas's ankle has given us all a reason to be a little overly concerned with any LBI for wide receivers. But the last question I had, and I'm looking back at all these at our respective RazzBowl drafts, and it seems like Pags and myself both took tight ends early. It's not a who would you rather, it's where would you rather. And Donkey Teeth, I noticed that in yours, maybe it was situation, maybe it was the fact that you really like who you took as Dallas Goedert and then Logan Thomas. But are you finding yourself waiting to the middle, or are you even reaching just a little bit to get one of that top tier?
Yeah, I'm okay reaching. Let me just say first on the that last question, Van Jefferson, I thought we were looking for a real dart throw there, guys. I went pretty deep.
I went to round 11.
That was an awesome dart, though.
So I don't want people to think that I'm saying Van Jefferson should be drafted even in a 12-team league. I was going deep. So, but no, the tight ends. I'm more of a go with the flow kind of drafter. So, my hope was to get a Darren Waller or George Kittle there. I think that there's some real value on that in RazzBowl. I know Pags and I have discussed that kind of at length. And once you got to set that lineup, I think there's a huge advantage to having one of those elites that you can plug in there. And really in your standard home league, I think that's been undervalued for years, being able to have a Travis Kelce come playoff time. I think that things have finally kind of adjusted to probably where they should have been for years. So I'm okay if one of those guys falls to me in the right area. I have trouble taking one of them over a guy like Antonio Gibson when I think that I'm getting an RB1, in the second round. I have trouble taking my guy Darren Waller there. But I think that there's a good argument for Kittle in the 3rd round. I also think there's a good argument for reaching on Kyle Pitts for that upside. I've always been an upside drafter. But if you miss out, I think that there's tons of good options in the middle rounds too. I got Goddard. I like Fant. I like Logan Thomas. I think now that Rodgers is playing, Tunyon is a nice place. I think that, just take whatever comes to you at tight end. I don't think you need to worry about it. It's nice to get a good one, but you can find options later too.
Yeah. Jorge, you want to lead us out of here with any amazing tight end talk?
Amazing tight end talk. Okay, well now you're setting the bar rather high. Look, give me Jonnu in the later rounds where that's where he's going. The Henry news only, which is not that I wish that on anybody, but he's out for a few weeks. That's going to give Jonnu some time on the field. Maybe they emphasize him more in the passing game. Who knows what happens when Hunter Henry comes back? If he comes back 100%, we will find out. But I'd rather take a Jonnu Smith there. All the names that Donkey you were just talking about. Logan Thomas, love Logan Thomas this year. I'm really hoping that what we saw last year towards the end of the season was not an aberration. I too look. If I'm a fan of Travis Kelce, I'm a fan of George Kittle, of Darren Waller. And let's remember, fantasy is supposed to be fun. Do I have a problem picking them in the late, first round, early second round, or in the second round? No, maybe Waller a couple rounds later or a round later. But for me, my strategy is just to wait on tight ends and just let it come to me.
I mean, is there really there's no wrong strategy if you win. That's a dynamite analysis that I will leave everything with. And I guess let's kind of round this up real quick. I know for anybody who might not have been listening at the very beginning. Oh, Dan Arnold. We love Dan Arnold last year.
He's in Carolina now.
I know, which is terrible. I hate that. I'm sorry. There's not enough. That pace of play there is too slow, and he'll catch 35 balls, unfortunately. Sorry, Jake. But Donkey Teeth, let's wrap up. Obviously, remind anybody where they can find you, what you're doing, what you're not doing, I guess would probably be a shorter list.
RazzBall. Come over to RazzBall. Check out, I got my rankings I'm releasing right now. I do little, quick blurbs on every player that I rank. So releasing those right now. I'm doing some little short videos with well-known industry guys, just asking them who their favorite draft target is. Release those on YouTube and out on Twitter at DonkeyTeeth87 on Twitter. So, I mean, if you come find me on Twitter, pretty much anything I'm doing will end up getting posted over there. So, thanks for having me on, guys.
Now, Aaron, do your best impersonation since Jake Trowbridge did one for him last time. Your turn. Give us anything you want. He must not have seen that. I missed your stuff. I watch your stuff, Donkey Teeth. That's a loyal Razz boy that follows along. Go ahead, Pags.
I saw that on my feed today. I've yet to watch it, but I heard it was.
It was pretty good.
I heard it was tremendous. Tremendous. Jake's awesome, by the way.
Really?
So doing stuff over at Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. So right now at Betting Pros, 3 times a week, I've got long shots for you. So here's a spoiler before the article comes out tomorrow. Sung J Im to be the first round leader at the Wyndham Championships, plus 5,000 for you. For Betting Pros this year, I'll be doing 1 NCAA football and 1 NFL football game preview every single week, as well as the long shots articles. And then over at Fantasy Pros, I'll be doing Monday's Panic Meter. So when you're panicking about David Johnson getting less carries than Mark Ingram, you can check my Panic Meter out on Mondays. And then on Thursdays, Air Yards Report. And so kind of checking out where the balls are flying around the NFL. And obviously on Twitter at Fantasy Triage.
And Jorge, if you want to jump in, we have it's plus 9,000 for you to win the RazzBowl with 2 running backs right now.
Watch it happen.
Parlay that with Dan Arnold for 1,000 yards receiving. He'll be a millionaire. Go ahead.
You can find me at Jorge B. Edwards on Twitter, although I'd rather have you follow all of us here at Fantasy and Frames. Head over to fantasyandframes.com. We have everything from a plethora of rookie breakdowns that it can still be valuable information for you in your fantasy football leagues this year. We're doing our 64 in 32 days, 64 articles in 32 days, profiling every NFL team, both on offense and in IDP, telling you who you should get on your roster to help win you a fantasy championship this year. Pretty soon we're going to have it on our YouTube channel, some mock drafts coming your way, so stay tuned for that. And for those, again, this is Expo week. You're going to have Expo weekend in Canton, Ohio. I hope everybody could come out to that. Visit us at the Fantasy and Frames booth. We'll be really excited to meet you and answer your questions. And for those who are content creators who are showing up and are just wanting to meet other people, we'd love to meet you too. Maybe we could do something and collaborate with each other. I think this is a great thing for the fantasy football community. Shout out to Bob Long for putting this together for another year. Definitely excited for that. And don't forget to enter our raffle for all this awesome autographed merchandise. And just tune into Fantasy and Frames. We've got some good things coming for you regular season, so stay tuned for that.
Listen, raffles and all. Sorry, Nate, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
All that, forget all that stuff. Just go to the Fantasy and Frames side of the thing. It's going to be the biggest party there. Jorge and Nate and the guys from Fantasy and Frames are awesome dudes. You will regret it if you leave Canton without meeting these guys. So they'll have a drink with you. They'll give you a big hug, and they'll tell you everything's going to be okay. I don't know if you can give hugs in COVID and Canton.
I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah,
I'll do what I want. You know what? And I'll also be handing out. We have one final thing. Sorry to drag this on even further, but pretty awesome news as far as I'm concerned. RT Sports is a host site for many of fantasy leagues. RTsports.com and Fantasy and Frames have formed a coalition now where we will be teaming up with them to provide direct fantasy content to their site, and they will be the official host of a lot of our future contests that we'll be releasing soon. We have an IDP only best ball tournament that we will hopefully release here shortly, maybe during the Expo or after the Expo, where the winner of this free entry league gets a contest entry into their fantasy championship. That's a $250 entry just for signing up, playing best ball IDP. You don't have to know much about anything. It's a great way to learn. Go over to rtsports.com. Check out one of their leagues. I don't know if you guys have ever played on there. Aaron, I know I just inundate you with it and make you check it out. Donkey Teeth, I don't know if you've been to RT Sports before, but a lot of the Sirius XM and the FSGA, FSWA, Tout Wars, a lot of those sites are actually hosted on RT Sports. And so it's been a pretty awesome last, I'd say, year for me, not to humble brag, but I get my favorite fantasy site to write for, Fantasy and Frames, and my other favorite fantasy site. I almost got in trouble there, didn't I? RazzBall, which
two bosses right now.
I'm better than that.
You got it.
But I've been following RazzBall for so long, since it really first started. It's an honor to be able to see my name on there and see my little stupid emoji and have that go out and everything. And so thank you, Donkey Teeth, for allowing me to spit my little 1,000-1,500 words a week and hopefully, help some people win in baseball. And then Jorge, thank you for allowing me to do all this for football, and RT Sports for allowing me to pimp their site and hopefully win some money and some free entries for all of our fans and listeners.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you everybody for paying attention and for watching and listening to this episode of Fourth and Frames. We'll be back next week talking everything that happened about the Expo, as well as just getting ready for your fantasy football drafts and getting ready for the regular season. So for Aaron, for Donkey, by the way, thank you very much for coming on. It was a pleasure meeting you. Hope to have you on again. Nate, as always, fantastic job. I'm Jorge. We'll catch you next week, folks.